What if the hardest person to lead in your plant is you? Most owners think the way out of the daily grind is to push harder or finally get away for one quiet weekend with the phone off. But the grind doesn't ease. The plant still can't run without you. The good people drift, and the pull to escape your own business or job only gets stronger. I'm Trevor Blondeel. I spent my career on the factory floor, and in my coaching work, I walked one manufacturing owner through this. And today he's going to show you the 5-step curiosity model, the shift that starts with getting curious about yourself and ends with a plant you no longer want to leave. Ryan Forte, owner of Jefferson Metal Products in Windsor, Ontario, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We had you on about 4 years ago because you did make a lot of changes, but now you evolved to another level, and I thought it was going to be interesting for our guests to understand, where were you 8 years ago? Ryan, what did you tell me you wanted to do 8 years ago?
I wanted to go snowmobiling.
like any good Canadian wants to go snowmobiling.
That's right. Yeah, I had this new sled and it was ready to be ridden, and I felt like every time there was a weekend where some of my friends were planning to get away, I just had trouble escaping because I didn't want to plan ahead because this might happen at work or I might have to do this. And snowmobiling is an example, but there's many other things in life that the shop takes a paramount hold on you above other things that you might want to enjoy. 4 years ago, I thought we were deep into stuff, but we were just peeling the layers off the onion. 4 years later, we've had some real breakthroughs. I was hoping to break away a bit more, just discovering how to do that 4 years ago, but now I think we've mastered it.
We're going to recap this through this episode. You started getting curious about yourself.
Certainly.
And then it started to change you as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then the changes in you started to impact the culture of Jefferson Metal Products.
Yeah.
And then that started to grow your people. And then your people just started to carry the whole company. You know, that's really the 5 steps. We'll break those down.
Sure.
And I think any owner or any leader can walk through those, and you're going to have different improvements over different periods of time. But what got you curious about yourself? Because when I met you, you wouldn't have entertained the conversation if you didn't have that curiosity, like, could be something that I'm doing. And prompted you, because you didn't have to, you're the owner. What prompted you to get more curious about yourself?
I knew there was something missing. I had trouble aligning with some people. I wouldn't say I couldn't work with them, but things didn't turn out the way I was expecting them. I learned a lot about myself in the beginning about, was I clear about what I was expecting within the business and the organization, with the culture? Did I choose to share what my expectations were? I held everything very closely because you want everything to turn out a certain way, and one person can't do all that great stuff. You need to be able to work interdependently with people, and that was something that I wasn't really good at doing. Not bad, but not great. You need to be great at it.
So what I'm hearing is that your curiosity, that first step, getting curious about yourself, you started looking at your relationships. And I think if you have a problem maybe with one relationship, maybe it's just that other person. And then maybe you have two. Or maybe it's just something's not right. Like, I think that's what you said. You looked at your relationship, something wasn't right. And obviously you couldn't go snowmobiling. So there was something that had to give. But what I appreciated was you weren't, this is what separated you, Ryan, is that you weren't coming in, we just need to come work with our leadership team. Or there's leaders that need to level up. And that wasn't your approach. And you were more curious about what's going on in our company. Right? How was Mario, your dad founded it, and he has one fabrication plant. You had another plant that you were looking after, and it happened where it's like, hey, come on in here. And when we started to dig into it, then we found, and you were open to having a 360 done in you. And I can remember you going through the results the first time, and that must have been that difficult moment for you, because now the summary is on the paper.
Trevor, when we started working together, I wasn't really clear on how you approach things. How do you do this? I think a lot of the attitude with people like me that get into this might be like, got these people, and how do we fix these people? Well, it starts from the top. And I knew that I had to make some changes, but I don't think I really realized how integral that was, starting from the top. Me. the one who's making all the decisions with all the expectations and things that the way you want to see a company run. How am I showing up? And he didn't really realize this stuff. Like when I'm saying I have problems with aligning with some people, maybe this person or this manager or this supervisor, then you get into the 360 and you kind of put yourself out there to have people be really candid about what they think about you. And when you pick this group of people that are going to evaluate you, and you get some praise, and those are the nice ones. I love Ryan, he's a great boss, and he does so many great things, and that's great too. But those aren't the ones that helped me. When you're reaching out to this recommendation, if anyone does this, don't give this survey to all the people that you get along great with. You got to give this out to some discriminating team members. And not to say discriminating, not someone that you don't not get along with them. You can't not work with these people, but sometimes you don't align. And those comments, and again, the whole thing is confidential. And the test goes on some matrix where there's a lot of data, number data, where they tie a number to something, and that was beneficial. But the comments are what got me the most. It wasn't the ones that were all fluffy and petting me. It was the ones saying, Ryan's a good guy, but the things he could work on are X, Y, Z. And then you get another one like that where there's some other little thing you can work on. And by the time you're done going through this survey, you're like, wow, I could really change a few things about myself. I mean, I still want to be Ryan Forte. Like I can't just be, you still got to be you, right? Maybe
100%.
you can't. There's a lot of things you realize about yourself, and you're not going to change all those things, but when you focus on a few really paramount important things that you think might be one of the big barriers to you getting to the successful points that you're looking for, and you work on that stuff, you'll find that you don't need to work so hard on getting that success after, because it comes automatically with the way you show up. And that's very important. And it takes time.
The 360, just for listeners, if you haven't had one, they call it the 360 because you get feedback from all directions. You had some key people that you had surveyed. So, and it's not a test, right? It's just a survey. People are evaluating from an emotional intelligence standpoint. We did it with Genos. How are you being perceived? So we got, behind me here on my board, we've got intentions. And then on the other side, I got perceptions. The people's perceptions may not be matching your intentions because you were a good leader and a good boss. There was something, like they say, if you're 5 degrees off, you can end up in the very wrong place. And you were just at 5 degrees off. I think another good lesson is it's not about changing who you are. That's what makes you great. It's being more mindful of how your behavior impacts the team. And is that how you want to impact them? Because the contradiction we found was you wanted to go snowmobiling, but the way you were showing up, the behavior was, we don't do anything without Ryan's opinion.
I started realizing things like that where I knew my expectations needed to be clear, and I had to let the people do it. I couldn't be in there, if you're talking about one type of thing we're working on, it might be an administrative thing. It might be something we're building in the shop. It might be a production workflow thing. Before it would be like, oh, we need this like this, we need this like this. But I'd say, well, guys, what do you think? You've done this together with me before. What would you do? And very often they would nail it. And a little thing that I might do differently, I might make note on that. And they would just seem to rise to the occasion. You start seeing this when you start giving someone an opportunity to make some decisions, whether they be small or medium decisions, not too high level of stuff, but you let people start making some decisions. And once they have a success where they had a lot of input into something and something works afterwards, that solidifies a good foundation for where they're going. I've been using this thing around the office when we have a meeting. We have a meeting every morning, Trevor. We have 2 meetings every day that I couldn't believe when we started. I don't know if I can talk about.
Sure, you can do whatever you want.
When I first started with you, Trevor, he said, well, every morning the whole team is going to meet because we start at 7 a.m. every morning. The whole team will meet up front and we'll all be together. The team leaders and management will say whatever needs to be said, if there's anything. We'll say it's sunny outside, have a great day, and everyone's there. And I said, wow, hey, we're going to do this? Are you sure? And you say, yeah, you're going to do that. Not only that, you need a tie-in with your higher level team. You got to meet for a production meeting every morning. Big companies know this stuff, right? We're a medium-sized company, Trevor, with about 40 people. And a lot of companies like that are just pull up and go. There's no getting together and getting a game plan. And you say, well, you can have a meeting every morning at 9 a.m. for production and your team leaders. And I said, every day we're going to do this? I could not live without those meetings. The team could not live without those meetings. If now we say we're going to stop the meetings, they'd be like, well, what about our meetings? We got to have our meetings. And everyone on the team would say they rely on this tie-in. And a lot of times it eliminates a lot of questions. You would need to go find that person on the floor. The list is endless on how much I'd improve things. But in these meetings, when we're going over production and manpower and our schedule, the standard steps that we take every day in the meeting, I've been practicing having a little fun with the team and saying, they say, what should we do here, Ryan? And sometimes it's an answer I feel like, let me press the record button. And I say, well, guys, what would you do if I was dead? If I wasn't here right now, what would you guys do? Let me see. And they usually give me the answer. Sometimes it's not always the right answer, Trevor, but I say that to let them know that they're in control of this. They need to make these decisions sometimes. It's not always right. Mistakes happen. Usually there's a solution for almost everything, even the biggest problems, and I go with that motto. So if you're going to make a mistake, it's usually fixable.
Yeah.
But very often, once they kind of start hearing me say that, they're like, trust me with this, things like that. So, and I kind of play with that a bit more, and I see things just kind of develop on their own.
So if we got to summarize, you're curious about yourself. So you looked at the 360, and the 360 just gave the people an anonymous way, and we did a lot of prep before that, right? So we started with, one, you were curious about yourself, right? That's what kicked it all off. Like, that's where we all have to start. And almost like we need to restart that daily. I know I do. And then number two, then it started to change you as a leader, right? So you got that feedback, and you just became aware that the reason I can't go snowmobiling is because everyone's coming to me for the answers because I want it done a certain way. And kind of what I heard you kind of say was, any mistake can be dealt with. We're not talking safety here. We're talking about just decisions on how to process a product or whatever, how do we get this product out to a customer, whatever those daily
day-to-day stuff.
So it's like, okay, so then let's just start letting that happen. So it started to change you as a leader. And then step three, when you as a leader change in how you show up and how you make those expectations more clear, and we have a different conversation on accountability that's more transparent, a changed leader changes a culture. Because we have all these books and all this conversation about change. We need this type of culture. We need people to be more engaged. But really, it starts with the leader. When the leader changes, the culture changes. So when did you start noticing, hey, it's not just me changing?
Well, one of the important things I realized that I learned from working with you, Trevor, was that two important words is engagement and purpose. Most people want to come to work not just to go through the motions, they want to be engaged in something, and they want to feel like they have purpose, like they're adding to something. I think a lot of my people didn't have that opportunity because they were going through the motions, and I was forcing that. You told me something interesting too, like a group of people, and when you start setting up your expectations, either they're going to be your person or they're not going to be your person. It's simple as that, okay? And if you give them the opportunity to be your person, and they will become that person. As an example, I have one gentleman that I work with who's outstanding. He's always been outstanding. He's worked with Jefferson Metal for close to 30 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, in the background, J&P merged with another stamping plant close to 15, 16 years ago. And we took some of the management and took the employees, they came with us. And so this was an assumed relationship between us and old management and new management. They had a lot of respect for the old management. And, sometimes they think, oh, we got this, father-son corporate duo coming in here to mess everything up. And it took me, that was one of my biggest challenges, was breaking into this new group of people and getting them to build trust between us. And I had this maintenance room, Trevor, at our second plant. It's where we went to go do stuff, and it was just always such a mess. And you know how important it is when you need a tool. You might need to tighten a bolt. It'd take you 30 seconds to tighten that bolt, but you spend 10 minutes looking for the wrench. I was always going on about, who's going to clean up the maintenance room? I tinkered around in there once in a while and would never stay the way. And to really do a robust job, you got to have someone in there. Who's my guy for this? Who's going to be my person for this? A lot of the people that I had, that I thought, oh yeah, it went the opposite way. Like, oh, this guy's going to be my guy. He's my guy. And a lot of people are like, oh, that guy can't be my guy. He was my guy. This one gentleman, Chris, who'd worked with us for many, many years, I guess he's always been organized. I couldn't tell, but until I started kind of letting him know, this is what I'd like. We worked on a couple small examples in other spots in the shop. I was like, oh, this guy has made his job easier by doing this, and he knows it. And, he kind of started, he started helping a bit more with maintenance and stuff. Then he went in the maintenance room, and he says, well, I'm going to put the screwdrivers away here. Started with one thing, right? And I said, wow, isn't that beautiful? I said, this is great, Chris, and I said, what else can we do? And before you knew it, the nuts and bolts were all organized and labeled. And now this maintenance room is such a craft in the way it's organized. It took a long time because there's a lot in the maintenance room. It would almost be a sin to go in there now and take the smallest Allen key or tool or something and not return it because of the pride that he keeps in this. And he knows it makes me happy. I mean, when I see something that I like, I'm the type of person to let that person know I really like it. I'm probably the type of person, if I don't like something, I might tell them too, but I believe praise is a lot more powerful than punishment. Because there's solutions for things you want to fix that. But when you can give someone praise, and I don't know, I feel like we feed off of this with each other, and once this gentleman, and I'm using Chris as an example, there's more examples of great team members have done other great things, but this is a very prime example of, the more I do, the more I like lead into how much I like this, because I get on the floor and I need that tool and I go and get it, and I was pleased to find the tool.
Right?
I'm pleased, he's pleased, and then he sees some other stuff that we had laying on the bottom of a shelf, and he says, I'm going to build a rack for this, and what do you think? I said, Chris, you don't need to ask me. You can, I see the way you organize things. You're free to build any kind of rack you want for these components or any type of shelf you want. So now I've given him that freedom, and that just kind of snowballs. And, I'm just pouring water on it, and it's just growing, right? So that's a good example. And there's a lot of other examples in the floor, whether it be, not only on the floor, with production or maintenance, but administratively too. And yeah, that was a big thing for me. Like the tool room, I'm a very tangible person. I get that from my dad, right? Like, and it's something you can see and touch, but you start realizing this stuff, with other teams and the way they communicate. We're not a big business. You have quality, you have production. They're two separate things, but they need to talk. And they need to know what's going on. They share a lot of the same information and things. And we found out that communication is vital. And before it was, a little bit crippled, because I think that the way we spoke to each other, the way we communicated, it doesn't need to be a stress. The conversation doesn't need to be like, it's not a problem. There's no one to blame here for things. Okay, if it's a problem, we can fix it. It might have been someone's fault. It may not have been. It's just something that happens. It's about the job.
Something I just caught there, right? You said, it's the stress and the conversation.
Yes.
And so when people are watching this on YouTube, or, they're in their own manufacturing plant, they're going to know what that feels like. And then I think for the, it's just, let's be curious for a minute on, like, where is that coming from, that stress, right? And is it really a stress? And so, like, I think a lot what you picked up on is that, again, you got curious about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
You start to change yourself as as a leader. So like, if something wasn't in the right spot, uh, you start to let that go, right? And then you start to take a different approach and said, hey, before your expectations were here, okay, the screwdriver should go in this slot, and then
Mm-hmm.
you just opened up those guardrails and said, you got your own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both want the same thing. I think we both want to find the tool and we can't find it. I think no one's going to say, well, it's too bad we can find all the tools, and they're so well organized. How
Mm-hmm.
exactly they get in there and organized, now you look at it differently, right? Now you're thinking up here, and if we just let everybody do their job here, and then like you're going to find those right people. So you changed, Ryan, that changed the culture. Quick break here. If this conversation's interesting you, there's something you can do, which is go to manufacturinggreatness.com/subscribe. I got 10 questions right now. You can ask more questions to your leaders. It's different when you got the page in front of you. And we're also working on creating some new applications that you can use, and that'll come out in the newsletter. Back to Ryan. And what I've heard you say before, like, we create the good people. Like, you already have good people, but you give them the opportunity. That's step 4. The culture grows your people.
Yeah. Well, Trevor, you said something. You said, you got to find these good people. I had these good people. I didn't need to find
Yes.
them. I had them. Most people in most businesses have these people. Stress. We said that a second ago. Stress for me is when I'm looking for the screwdriver and I can't find it. It took 30 seconds to tighten the bolt, but it took us 10 minutes to find the screwdriver. That stresses me out. And then before you know it, Ryan's running around going, "Where's that screwdriver?" Ryan's stressed out. Stress is pervasive. If you were to go up to someone, let's eliminate the stress. Let's find the screwdrivers. Put them where they belong. What's the next thing that stresses us out? Can we eliminate this source of stress? Now, again, you're never going to eliminate all stress. The world's not perfect. We're working to create a perfect work environment. It's never going to be perfect, but you're always striving to make things better. If you're going to be kind of stressed out about something at work, and I used to do it, I'm guilty. I would be stressed and I'd go to something and I would say, "Oh my God, what's going on? This is a big problem. Why'd this turn out like this? Blah, blah, blah." As soon as you walk away from that person turns around and Bob or Jim says, "Ryan's all upset. We got to get going." And Bob and Jim turns around to Harry and Tom, and this just spreads around like a big disease of stress because I'm stressed out. And it's really a real thing. Like, stress is pervasive and it spreads. So when you show up and you're going to lead, it's like being the captain of a ship. Even if it's sinking, you're going to be fine, guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It will never sink, PS. But the point is the way you show up with letting your people know that there are solutions for all problems. Things are fixable. Not sweating the really small, trivial things. It makes things better.
Yeah.
If that gives you some insight, Trev.
Yeah, that insight of, we had a podcast episode a couple months ago where I mentioned you about the whole chocolate fountain effect, right? Fondue, chocolate fountain, so yeah, it's true, right? And how that cascades through the organization. It's good chocolate coming out of the top, and as those rings get wider, that's what you're describing, right? That's step 4. That's just growing your people so that all that good's coming out. That's going to compound in a good way. And and you're changing that approach. But what's interesting is that, like, that tool room might be maybe better than if you did it, right? Because now you've got the person that's actually in there every day, and you're very organized. I've seen you. You're smart. But like the impact of growing your people, and probably it being better because more minds are better that are in this space consistently. That's going to continue, and that's just going to grow your people. And we talk about leveraging the resources you already have. So right now, if you're going into your plant today, like, just look at one person that maybe you haven't leveraged, right? If we're wishing we had somebody else, wait a minute, who's in our building today? And what do I own in that? And then how can I bring out the best? And that's really what I've seen you do, Ryan, is that you continue to be able to step back. I mean, you've gotten new customers. Like, talk a little bit, like, you're not only, and I know that you haven't done as much snowmobiling, but like, you go to Italy with your dad and Karina, and you know, you go to your place in Mexico with your dog Charlie, and you know, and your whole family, and just you're just living a different life. And what's happening in Jefferson Metal Products?
Well, things are running as according to plan, whether we're here or not. Like Charlie, if I could step back a bit, when you mentioned the tool room a couple seconds ago about if I wanted to do it myself, it might not have turned out so good. Well, I'd be surprised if it still would not be done if I was trying to do it myself. Okay, it wouldn't be finished.
Exactly.
It would still be and I'd be holding that so dear to me, being like, it needs to be like this, like an evil villain. Yeah, it is better. Number one reason why it is better than I would do, because it's finished. Number two, I learned something about how good, this team member is. That I didn't know he's a great guy. And when I say I didn't know he was going to be my guy, I had no idea his potential.
Yeah.
And you almost feel bad for that after, right? And
so good. You didn't realize his potential. How many times did you not do that?
You feel guilty about that after. When someone really shows you, you're like, wow, this guy's been waiting all this time to show me how good he is, And when you say, instead of me doing it myself, this is another segue into another great thing that you taught me is, regardless of going away on snowmobiling or to Italy, we'll get to that. But, another good segue is working on my business rather than in my business. I love working in my business. I love, Trev, it's a manufacturing plant. We work in steel. I love getting into the dirt. I love turning the wrenches. I love seeing a process. I love the product. I love working with the people and all that stuff. But I found that, once I was able to confidently come and step away from that and look at some high level things to, so maybe high level cost savings energy projects or government grants and things like that I wouldn't have time with because I was always on the floor, I had that opportunity to work on that stuff because I wasn't so worried about what was going on out there. Do you understand what I mean? I didn't feel like I had to be pulled out of, call it the office. It's not my favorite thing, but I'm not bad at it. I can do office stuff. And when I had my own rewards in the office because I had the time to focus on it. Like you said, securing new, bigger jobs, improving equipment, just for the, safety things, things that investments into the company that, one thing Trevor's big on getting new jobs and being more profitable, but I'd like to be able to do something big once in a while where we introduce a new piece of equipment, a new piece of software, a new cell of some type. And then, the team members need to see that you're investing back into the company, and all these little pieces of technology and things you're adding, it's things for them to do. And it's more skills and knowledge for them to learn. And when they learn something like a software or a piece of equipment, whether it be a press or a forklift, or that's knowledge that they get to put in their pocket. And if they were to move on somewhere else to another opportunity, of course on good terms, that's information that they know is in their pocket. And I can't be like, give me that knowledge back. I own that. So they see the values in me, being able to do some high level expansion to the business, because I'm not always just kind of stuck there focusing on the micromanagement of the day-to-day stuff.
Now you have this manufacturing team leadership. That's what we're looking, we're people are looking for that. People Google and search that, right? Growing your people, leadership and culture, just trying to look at how do we do that? And then here you are, you're seeing that, right? And we're not only doing that. The other thing I've seen you do is just upgrade your equipment for the safety of the people, like less physical strain and knowing that people, you want to keep those people there as long as you can, and they want to be there, right? Like that's gold.
Oh,
And now these people that grew because you changed with your own curiosity. You know, we started manufacturing because we're curious. We're curious how stuff's made, right? And just curious about that whole process. And then we lose that curiosity about people. And you brought that into yourself, that turned into others, and now we get to carry the place, and now you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And that was the biggest thing you said to me, is that, you know, I feel like the sky is the limit, and that, you know, you want to be there because you got great people and you see those opportunities, and you could be working, and you can do both. You know, you have the choice now. Before, you were working in the business just because that was just default, or the coveralls and just jump in there. Now it's like, if you want to, you can. And I think that's great. But really, you got 40 people are looking at you saying, you're the face of the company. We need you out there, and let's keep us current. And you're doing that.
Yeah, I think that being able to keep the people engaged with their own type of you know, exercises and day-to-day stuff is really important. Being able to kind of get some high-level things completed where people can see growth of the business is ultra important. You know, we talk about, you know, Trevor, you mentioned having vacations and such, and going away, and I felt like I never really had time for that. Or if we did have time for that, my time off was kind of monopolized by worry. What's going on at the shop? Can they handle this? Can they handle that? And I feel that it's a little bit more carefree. We can go away because of the confidence. And I find myself too, Trevor, my dad, Mario, my hero, the guy who, you know, the founder of this place, which you've met many times, man of few words. You know, quiet, kind of stone-faced kind of guy, but super authentic and cool. You know, we started, you know, this, you know, what were we going to do here? Did I, you know, as he gets older and he wants to retire, and I say, what am I going to do? Can I do this forever? Is there some type of succession plan? And it's funny that you think like you really want something, looking back, but that changes. That changes for me. Like I don't really think about succession, or, you know, what do I do if I ever want to wind this place down? I am much more inspired and motivated to keep doing this. The way the company runs like this, the way the organization is operating now, changes what I want in the future. If it was like it was 4 or 5 years ago, I might have different ambitions of what I want to do in the future. But because of these changes, and because of, I want to say, the positive direction I feel that we're moving in, I don't really want to go anywhere. I just love what I do.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
We want manufacturing in North America, right?
Yeah.
We have these, not a lot of people lined up wanting to work in manufacturing. So we're going to close this out now. We've gone through the 5 steps,
Sure.
and which was, be curious about yourself. It changes you as a leader. The leader changes the culture grows your people, and these people that have thrived, the grown people, carry your organization, right? So that you're like Ryan and you want to have some fun. And I think what gets missed if you're not having a wide view of manufacturing is that you may look at these big companies and like, oh, well, they would just know about these morning meetings and how they do this and how they show up. My belief is, Ryan, it's Jefferson Metal Products that's going to take North America into our future, right? Because it's not about just compounding and getting more. It's about, how do we keep that connection? How do we stay curious and accountable? How do we get other leaders like yourself just to be curious about ourselves, right? Understand, how are we impacting that we don't have to be a jerk to hold people accountable. We just got to evaluate, like, am I being curious about that person? And you are setting the example. Like, that's why I had you on this show on such an important topic. because you're just doing it. And I think that is the call to greatness for manufacturing. Like even just in Windsor, I mean, you look at the plants in Windsor, that if they can all follow your lead, bigger companies, small companies, everyone will find their way. But you got to start with some curiosity about yourself. So just thanks for being curious, man. What do you want to leave the listeners with today?
Well, Trevor, I appreciate those compliments very much. And yeah, it's a big, big thing. Like not only being curious about yourself, but I learned that from day to day. You're going to encounter a situation. It might be good, it might be bad, it might be a problem, looking for a solution. And instead of kind of going in with this is why, and that's why, this, I kind of go in with maybe the people and I say, why did they feel like that? That they had to go in that direction? Why are they upset about that? He got this job done so much faster than last time. What was so curious? Like, I'm curious to know what was the difference. You know, things like that, Trevor. And I mean, thank you very much for all of your help, because you've really given me excellent direction and guidance. And thank you for the praise of, what I'm trying to do here. I'm just doing what I know. I'm not doing anything different, or I don't think I'm doing anything special. I'm just doing what I think is right, trying to apply a lot of the things I learned. And Trevor, I just want to say I think you are doing a great job with what you're trying to do in manufacturing and the type of message you're trying to spread. And I believe that you can really, really make a difference out there. So just want you to know, thank you too for everything you've helped me with, Trevor. It's been really a pleasure. And it's always a pleasure working with you.
We need each other, right? Because I need somebody that can like show that, hey, this works. You can increase sales. You can be happier. You can have retention, and you can still be you. Like you're a model. That's why the book comes out May 11th, 2027, Manufacturing Greatness, and that's you're in that call to greatness at the end of what else could we do? That's what inspired the podcast today. I think it's cool that you're recording from your office. We could hear some phones ringing in the background. We had to shut some of the saws down. For the listeners that are in their car, we've got the old Pepsi machine, we got a pinball machine, we got a move tape and an owl. I mean, that's good Canadian manufacturing.
But
it's who we are, right? I mean, we like and know and trust people when they show up who they are. And you didn't change who you are, Ryan, and that's why it's working. And you're just a little bit more curious about yourself, curious about others. And until next time, appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, everything, what you're saying works, Trevor. The listeners got it. It really works. So thanks for having me, Trev. It's been a slice. I really appreciate it, man.
How much fun is that conversation with Ryan? It just leaves us thinking, what are we capable of? Like, what's next? What's our opportunities when we get curious about ourselves? So if you want more of that, you go to manufacturinggreatness.com/subscribe. Right away, you're going to get those 10 questions you can start asking, because without that in front of you, forget about that. And just having that in front of you, that's what that PDF is for. We're also creating some more interactive tools that's be coming soon, and I don't want you to miss it. So get on that list, get asking those questions. If you want to know more about Ryan, you can go to www.jeffersonmetal.com, and you can even email him at ryan@jmpmetals.com if you got more questions for Ryan. And we'll see you next week.